and want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we might have our colleague joining us here momentarily. But again, not my meeting. Your meeting.
Here she comes now.
Okay.
Here she comes.
We'll talk real slow so she gets there.
I thought you were going to say forget me.
Hello,
Talk real slow,
everyone.
My
forget
name
me.
is Joseph. I mean, if I start spelling my last name, Fontanelli, we could be here for another 10 minutes.
Hey,
There's that beautiful lady.
Hello.
how are you? We're gonna have you.
Hi, everyone.
You're
Sorry,
gonna sit over
my
there.
apologies.
Barb, come on over.
No, you're good. You're good.
Hey, how are you?
We'll save you a seat.
Well, thank you.
So we're on
I said I
recording
was going
now.
to sit on the back.
So the mayor will start the meeting. He'll do a roll call of the elected officials and then do a quick introduction of some of the other folks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, 2:08, we'll go ahead and call this workshop to order. Val, if you go ahead and call roll, please.
Commissioner Snow,
Here.
Commissioner Curry,
Here.
Commissioner Delanoy,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Penny.
Here. Also, we have President Joe Forte and
So we'll just go around for our staff. So Joe Forte, city manager, Val Manning is the clerk, Brian Walker, city planner, assistant city manager. We have Fred Griffith, who's the stormwater engineer, Joe Grasakis, who's our public works director, Steve Youngs, who's our deputy public works director, Chris Spear, former mayor, very interested in the project. And then we have Claire and
Justin Hanna, RSNH, part of the project team.
then on this side, I'll let you.
Nathan Silva with RSNH.
Joseph Fontanelli, FDOT District 5.
And Barb Thurman, GAB Consultant and Management.
Perfect. So we're going to turn it over to Joe. Oh, to Nate.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us today. So again, the purpose of this workshop and meeting is to present our findings on the LPGA Boulevard planning study. I had an opportunity to meet with a number of you through this process. It's been a process about a year. This is done via partnership through, no pun intended, through the city of Holly Hill and FDOT as we were asked to explore the impacts of widening LPGA from State Road 5 Nova down to Riverside. The purpose of this meeting again is to present those findings. We, in this process, commissioned RSNH, as we have met, to be the engineer of record at this point to provide the concepts that we'll show you today. In concert with that, we also worked with the GIABI group and had a robust public engagement that will be covered in this presentation to try to capture the sentiment of the community as well as yourselves in the county as we have worked through this project. This again was done in partnership with FDOT and the city of Holly Hill, and we are excited to present these. I want to just say these are facts. I am not here, I'm not going to say I support or don't support one thing or the other. We can talk about the reality and the future of these concepts, but ultimately I think it's up to the people in this room to decide, you know, what viable option is to move forward. But this is just the concepts that we were asked to look at, and we'll look at those alignments, those concepts, as we look at the widening of LPGA. So before we begin, is there any questions for me on how we got here or the purpose of this presentation?
Did you bring your money with you?
I did not. I actually had to take a class on that, you know, so they said, don't bring money with you,
All
Joseph.
right. We were hoping you'd come in here with a big pot.
Well, these are things, I mean, you know, tongue-in-cheek side, sentiment side, I mean, these are things that we have to explore as a team, you know, moving forward with, you know, the funding options out there and the partnerships that we can create. Again, that was not not my wheelhouse and not my area, but again, we're here to show you the concepts.
Great.
So they'll go through the PowerPoint, we'll discuss the options. There are actually 4 options, and there's some of the discussion items that we'll have. And then you're going to hopefully reach your own conclusions. But there's no recommendation at the end of this. It's just the facts. And at the end of the facts, you know, we as the staff, when we met last week, we reached some conclusions, which I haven't shared with you because I want you to reach your own conclusions, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so this presentation is about 10 or 12 minutes long. Just to give you an overview, we met with each of you individually back at the early part of the study to kind of lay the groundwork and get your initial input. Like Justin said, we've gone through the analysis and we have some conclusions to present to you. talk about the four alternatives that we developed. Then Barb and Claire are going to talk about the public engagement program that we did. We've had a pretty robust public meeting and outreach program. And then just talk about what the next steps are depending on what the commission wants to do. And then just open it up for Q&A. And please interrupt me at any time. This workshop is for you guys to get information. So if I gloss over anything, you have detailed questions, just feel free to stop me. So we looked at about a 1.4 mile long segment of LPGA, essentially through city limits from Nova to the river. About 1.4 miles long. Today it's a constrained two-lane facility. The existing typical section, like I said, is two-lane facility. At the extreme western end, we've got about 125 feet of right-of-way, public right-of-way, but the canal takes up a substantial portion of that. As we get into the center, still the footprint of the roadway itself is about the same, but the right-of-way tightens where the canal is no longer within the right-of-way. And then these are general, typical sections. The canal kind of goes in and out. The property lines are kind of crazy. But this is just kind of a generalization.
And the depth of the canal does not reflect the actual depth. That's just for illustration purposes.
Absolutely. In fact, when we drew it to scale, it just looked like it was a little ditch because some of the areas of the canal is about a foot or two. So we overemphasized that just to make sure you knew it was not a ditch. And then east of US 1, it tightens up. Right away gets really tight into a more residential street. So with every project like this, we do an existing conditions analysis. So we did some traffic counts. We did an operational analysis of the facility itself. You can see the traffic volumes range from about 2,600 on the eastern end to just almost 11,000 feet close to Nova Road. It's about the standard for a two-lane road. If you're familiar with the level of service scale we use for traffic operations, that level of service D is kind of a moderate congestion, significant level of service D, moderate congestion. And typically that happens in the peak hours, peak hours in the morning, peak hours in the afternoon. And that's generally constrained or focused at the signalized intersections. And everything is relative here. A level of service D with moderate congestion, that may mean you have to sit through 2 cycles of the signal before you make it through it. So it's moderate congestion today. Historically, we looked at the crashes, and this 5-year history just shows you where some of the hot spots were. Unfortunately, you did have one fatal crash at Center Road. Any fatality unit crashes is not good, but this is not out of the range of similar facilities around the state.
But I just want to say, any fatality is
Absolutely.
not acceptable. So, I mean, safety is number one priority for all of our facilities.
Yeah, the department has the Vision Zero that you guys are sure where it's going to get to 0 fatalities. So any kind of improvement, we want to make sure it lasts a long time. So we looked at 25 years, 2050. That's the forecast year, horizon year. And you see that in general, this is using the traffic forecasting model that the MPO has adopted. It's the adopted model. In general, the traffic is projected to increase by about 20%. But when you see 20%, that's 1,300 more vehicles on the eastern end and about 3,000, 3,200 on the western end. So percentage-wise, it's
So
pretty
is there a
significant.
scale where it says that 2-lane road is not effective or obsolete at some point?
Well, you can see the level of service D is still showing, well, there is a scale. What these forecasts are showing is that we're projected out, it would still be operating at a moderate level of congestion. It's not showing that we're at gridlock, so to speak. So the 2 lanes will still handle it. The intersections, so if you have congestion during the peak hour, in the future you might have a little bit more congestion, maybe at a turn lane or something like that. We're looking at the signal timing. We'll talk about that at the end. But
So
the forecasts show that this still falls within the acceptable standard of.
So currently we're DDA, and in 2050 it would be DDB. Just looks like it gets a little worse to the east, correct?
Yeah. And there's a range, like I said, Okay. So,
And that standard extends to F and E and continues on.
Okay.
So it's, generally when we look at these, we think of like high school grades and where D isn't acceptable, but in this particular scale, it's not, I don't want to consider it like a school grade where D is, barely passing it. It is, as you look at the entire scale, certainly as Nathan mentioned moderate and acceptable for the averages of the state highway system.
Sure, just to expand, because I think this question is going to come up later. So level of service D, moderate congestion. When you get to level of service E, technically that means the roadway is operating at its full capacity. And when you get to F, that's when it's failing and you have unacceptable congestion. So what this traffic forecasting is showing us is that 2 lanes are adequate to serve the traffic at an acceptable level of service, even out to the year 2050.
Thank you.
Okay. So that was the kind of the foundation of what we used to develop our alternatives. So we looked at, as we get to these 4 alternatives, we looked at the proximity of the residents and the businesses. As I said, the right-of-way really varies, and some of the homes and businesses are right up against the right-of-way, some are a little further back, so we looked at that. Then with our widening, we counted what potential number of relocations, how many houses, how many displacements would we have. The environmental challenges that go along with any modifications to the canal. We talked about intersection configurations. Like I said, there may be some lower cost intersection modifications that could work and make things improve the congestion through the corridor. Pedestrian bicycle accommodations are very important. I think we talked about this with all of you, that there's a lot of folks that walk and ride their bikes through this corridor. Not because they're out there exercising, but that's the only way that's their main form of transportation. We saw that a lot when we were doing our field work. Looked a little bit about staging and constructability with some of these alternatives of how that would happen. Utilities, as you know, there's a transmission, overhead electrical transmission line that's goes almost the entire length of the corridor. That's in that little grassed area between the edge of roadway and the canal. And relocating those transmission poles are extremely expensive. With any kind of widening or updates to the roadways itself, we would then end up having to upgrade all of the stormwater treatment systems that go along with that. So we consider that. And with that, we looked at potential areas for stormwater retention ponds. Not saying these are the only places, but these are some potential.
Was there any look at widening the LPGA at all in any of these considerations?
Widening this section of LPG? Yeah. Well, in fact, we essentially have 2 sets of improvements. We looked at a 3-lane widening concept, which would be, it could be 1 lane in each direction with a center continuous turn lane. Or when we met with you guys early on, you said, well, how about if we did 2 lanes each eastbound direction and 1 lane westbound? So although we didn't draw that up, the 3-lane footprint could be restriped, and that could work just the same. So when we talk about the 3-lane, that could be 2 lanes and 1 lane, or the standard.
I was referring to the LPGA canal itself. Was there any concept of widening that to handle more stormwater?
Oh, widening the canal for storm? No.
Okay.
We do have some concepts that are modifying the canal, but not specifically for stormwater treatment, but for widening concepts.
Hey, Nathan, I just want to address a comment that was made with regard to the fact that 2 lanes handle the traffic going out to 2050. So that the small increases in traffic between now and 2050 are able to be handled by the 2-lane road. That's given the situation now. That doesn't anticipate improvements or things that Holly Hill may do in the future that draws more people, entertainment districts or what have you. It's just a snapshot of existing conditions and saying if all things remain the same between now and 2050, traffic is that a correct assumption?
Well, the traffic forecasting model that the MPO develops and we use, that does show growth in the land uses. So anything that you would have provided to the MPO for future plans as they were updating their model would be in that model. But if it's something new that you're proposing or contemplating or studying, that may not be in the model. But it's not just, the 2050 model isn't just existing land use, it's projected out to what a 2050 land use is.
And if I could caveat, for special events, so for example, if you had a concert at Pictona, which I had an opportunity to go to, special events, while they're calibrated for reliability of traffic time, they don't count them as general traffic over the model.
Because they're one-time.
Because they're one-time things. So for example, like Bike Week, Beach Week, when we do A1A and those types of studies, yes, it's congestion in that moment, but it's not for the prolonged model, if you will. So those are things that we have to expect congestion when we have special events as such.
And I don't want to jump ahead too much, you matter, but you said in 2050, you're going to have, they're all Ds going down LPGA, basically between Ridgewood and Nova, with turning lanes.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
So operational improvements could, we'll talk about that. Operational improvements as such, because when somebody's queues and then it backs up, but the traffic numbers
Will be the same,
will be
yeah.
the same, but the operations could be modified. So that I think it's
So what's of note is when you travel west on LPGA, you've got this vast amount of developable land that's out there that has projections for growth. When you come east on LPGA, for the most part, Holly Hill is built out. There's no great amount of land that's going to be developed. There's no housing communities coming in. There's no 1,000-person factories coming in. So it is what it is, and there's just not that development eastbound as you see westbound. So, all right, well,
Exactly. From a transportation planning land, you have a mature corridor within the city. And then just one last thing, you'll see our 2050 AADT, that's average annual daily traffic. Like Joseph said, this is an average day that we're projecting, not special event days. So, getting back to the alternatives, we essentially developed two sets, one with a 3-lane widening concept and one with a full 4-lane widening concept. Even though the traffic didn't show that was necessary, through some of the conversations we had with you guys early on, we wanted to lay it out just so you could see what it looked like. And then with each of those, with one set of alternatives, what's A and B, we held the canal as is and widened everything to the north side so we wouldn't get into modifications of the canal. And after we did that, we kind of got together and looked at it and said, well, let's see what we could do into the canal. So then our alternative C and D, then take the 3 and 4 lane, widen it into the canal, you'll see some modifications to the canal, and then just to see what those kind of impacts and costs. So we have a kind of a comparison. One, canal stays intact. Other option is we impact the canal. So this is our first one, and all of these typical sections are shown on our maps here. So with this concept, like I said, this is our 3-lane. We're showing one lane in each direction, but it could be either way. We held the canal as is and widened all the way to the north. You brought everything up to current standards, proposed a 12-foot wide shared use path on the north side. You'll see this, we extend about 30 feet. We need about 30 additional feet of right-of-way. That's all, essentially be all along that north side of the road. Like I said, some houses are very close to that, some parking lots, so talking about 30 feet worth of impacts to those parcels. And we counted about 70 parcels would then be impacted by this alternative.
And Nathan, if I could jump
So
in.
is the 20.8 inclusive of the acquisition of the 70 parcels?
No, sir, that's what I wanted to allude to. At this point, this does not include right-of-way. So you'll see the shift of the financial impacts as we go into the canal. It's more expensive, but as we look at the right-of-way impacts, and we're not going to speculate the realty market at that point, you'll see that it would be offset with the right-of-way impacts and the cost of those, not just buying homes, but business relocations as such. So though this looks maybe, we'll look at the matrix as one of the cheaper options, I think the reality is the right-of-way impacts and the cost of those would offset that, if not create more of a financial burden.
Right.
So
what you're looking at is everything from acquisition of the businesses along LPGA that's up near Ridgewood Avenue, Enterprise Court, to the duplexes that are down near Center Avenue, to the parking lot, the parking structures, and potentially the buildings at what you know as Bishop's Glen. But we'll get into more of that as Nathan goes through.
Well, just, you guys know I'm the numbers guy. If you take 70 parcels and average 300,000, that's $21 million acquisition cost.
This is a project where the right-of-way
That's doubled.
could be 100% or more of the
Right.
construction cost. And so it's going to be substantial. So this is a 3-lane concept, maintaining the canal intact. And this is the 4-lane. This would upgrade LPGA to a standard 4-lane arterial, the grass median. This allows for, turn lanes at the major signalized intersections, median openings, et cetera. But it's at 30 feet of additional right-of-way, you're getting into 65 feet. Now you see that because there's a lot of parcels on the north side are pretty deep, the number of parcels impacted is not that greater. We're just taking more of their property. But for example, like the apartment complex, instead of maybe getting one row of parking, now we may be in the building. So it's just, the impacts to individual parcels are substantially more. Okay?
And the one word you said that probably makes everyone in the room uncomfortable is the taking of the land.
Yeah.
There usually buildings up on Bishop's Glen.
Makes me uncomfortable.
And you can see the impacts on these well plots that we hope to look at. But again, facts, we're just laying the footprint down.
And with this, not substantially more expensive from a construction standpoint because of all the impacts, but still we're in the mid-20s. So now these next two alternatives are the same, the 3-lane and 4-lane, but we encroach into the canal to try to reduce those impacts to the north side. So we did a preliminary hydraulic analysis of the canal, not nearly enough that you could go get a permit or anything. There's a lot, if something like this is decided to move forward, there's a substantial, area-wide drainage analysis that would have to be done because this canal connects to so many other things. So this is an educated analysis guess of what we could. But you can see, we assume that we could go in and we put sheet pile walls, narrow the canal, and widen, maintaining the north side right-of-way line and widening this way. We're still showing that we're going to need a little bit more in some of these areas because we have to have tiebacks for the sheet pile walls and so even with this, we're still not having zero right-of-way impacts. We are having less, down to 48 and a smaller portion, but we still, instead of impacting parcels on the north side, we're now impacting parcels that would be on the southern side of that canal.
And
Okay.
did you say narrowing the canal?
Yes.
So,
Well, you're building sidewalls.
It's
Yeah.
gonna flow faster.
okay.
And there is some hydraulic value to doing things like that. It reduces the friction and things, but like I said, it would require much more detailed analysis than this. You have to do an upstream evaluation to make sure.
Right.
But this is a possibility.
And with these, when we affect the canal, there's naturally the water treatment plant that works in conjunction with that. There's also the structure that navigate over the canal, as we go through center, and then there's also the railroad crossing that crosses the canal. So any impact, in fact, any impact is going to be hard pressed not to start affecting those structures. So remember, all those structures will then need to be reestablished, coordinated with, and if it's not in our right of way or rear right of way, if it's there's a lot of coordination that then have to take place, particularly the railroad coordination, because it does breach the canal or cross the canal. With any effects of the canal, you then open up that coordination and those modifications as well.
So as you can see with this, the construction cost of this is substantially more. It's primarily related to how to treat this canal. We see, like I said, sheet pile walls, which are extremely expensive. There's other options, but we needed something as you go by. And then the last alternative is our 4-lane option. Did the same thing on the south side, modify the canal. We still show the 10-foot impact, but that's not enough to accommodate this entire 4-lane. So even with this one, and with the canal modifications, we're still getting in and impacting some parcels on the northern side, so 40 feet. So instead of 65 feet with the first one, that got reduced down to 40 feet. So this is just a huge impact, both on both sides, as well as costs with impacts to the canal. Okay? And the cost reflects that. So other considerations, if we're talking about the canal, like I said, let's see, C&D. So C&D, we showed you the sheet pile wall concept here. And with that, as Joseph mentioned, the 4 bridges, including the railroad bridge, would all have to be reconstructed, modified. So that's an additional cost, and coordination with railroads is extremely challenging. With each of these four, with each alternative, as we upgrade the roadway, we would install curb and gutter for stormwater collection. So let's start with, to meet permitting requirements. So then with each of those stormwater collection systems, we then have to have those go with ponds. We can't just discharge that in the canal, which would be nice. But you'll see some stormwater ponds, potential locations. So in addition to the right-of-way impacts on the parcels, we'd still need to identify locations for those stormwater ponds and channel up there.
We have a 3-lane intersection right there. I looked at these, by the way, I had a minute to get an eye on them. We got a 3-way lane intersection right there. I know, and most of this is because of bringing up the standard of state, right? I mean, that's why we're gonna have to get the right of ways that we're looking at. And there's no way to get around that at all, and a variance through the state anyway?
At this point, I'd say no, unless the city has, or the county has some way of doing it. Also, and bringing it up to standards is not just the curb and the gutter, but we probably have to raise the elevation of the roadway itself, which if you guys see major reconstruction of roadways, it's not uncommon to see those roads be lifted 2, 3, 4 feet.
It seems like we have a lot of right of way right there with the 3 lanes. I mean, if we literally did that all the way down through there.
Well, we're gonna talk about turning lane options, intersection improvements.
Sure, yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah, it's pretty neatly laid out. It's just everything the way that you have to bring things up to standard for the state that you,
The other thing, JD, you
Can't
have
just
to
widen the
remember
road.
is this is,
yeah, I know, you can't just widen the road.
this is
You
a
used to
county
be able to
road.
widen the road?
Right.
Oh, isn't that right? You used to widen the road?
You gotta remember, it's a county road, it's not a city street.
I know,
So
I get it.
the county's gotta be involved, and the county's not gonna do anything, state's not gonna do anything.
Well, and with that said, if it violates, if it's outside of the state standards and it can't be federalized through the NEPA process, we then hamstring ourselves into any type of federal funding or any type of grant funding. So again, I'm not a grant person, but if it doesn't meet standards, you then hamstring yourself, and then you can then limit what you may or may not be able to apply for or vie for if it comes for infrastructure and or mega grants that might be available for you. So I can't speak to city or county standards and what can be done outside of the purview of the state. I will not, obviously. But
I'll just give you just a quick idea of the difference. If you remember many years ago, now several of you were not here, but we talked about doing a widening improvement on, I think, on 15th Street, where we had a canal, and we had a choice between doing it with city forces and contracting it or doing it under lap certification. And the lap certification was 3 or 4 times the cost to do the construction, because now you're doing it state money, it's the state procedures, and it was cost prohibitive, so nothing had gotten done.
So those are the alternatives. That was our rationale, and some of the results. Are the results? This is a summary table that just kind of pulls all that together in one slide. See the kind of impacts in terms of total acres, the parcel impacts that we talked about. The concept that if we go to C and D, which impacts the canal, it also has the impacts to the bridge.
And those
And then the cost.
bridge costs are not included in this, is that correct?
Bridge costs are included, an estimated cost of those bridges, yeah. Anything related to the construction, not right away, not utilities,
But I would assume that we didn't put the CFX and so the coordination with CFX, we can't.
CSX, yeah.
Or CSX, we can't put the monetary value on that, because if you widen, or if you have to modify, any type of the rail crossing because you widen the road, there might be potential coordination with the rail in other aspects of the city of Holly Hill. It's just, again, not my jurisdiction, but when you start putting more people, more cars across their rail crossings, it then becomes a coordination effort. And I know in past, like with Benel, we had to do that, where they asked us, and this again is not this, I'm speaking just in past experience, well, we could widen this when we did State Road 11, but then we're gonna have to close a crossing over here with something that we had to do as a state coordination because of widening Benell, State Road 11 in Benell. There's more traffic, there's more pedestrians, and for safety issues, they wanted to then coordinate other coordinations with not just that crossing, but other crossings on their line. So we did not fully explore that because, again, we are in the planning level, but if it came to actual modifications of their crossing, that's coordination that would have to be done, and it could have a ripple effect somewhere else on their rail line that might be within the city of Hollywood.
Just a quick observation, we have a good amount of utility lines that are crossing the canal, so you'd have to modify the sheet piles. So,
And where the you said that elevating the road, changing the road, we'd have to address stormwater. Any of those numbers address the stormwater ponds or not?
Not the ponds, but the curb and the gutter and the piping, but not the ponds.
And again, the reason for that, sir, is because depending on where, if we put
Right.
it on a Walgreens, that's gonna be a different number
Right.
than if we, or then if we take the junkyard and then there's contamination efforts. So it's a moving target, and it'd be tough to accurately tell you that cost because it all depends on where that preferred location would be. Maybe you have a willing seller, maybe you don't. So that's why it's hard to pin that down.
So realistically, option D is easily $100 million.
Total.
All in.
Out the door, easily.
That's buying all the intimate domain. Buying all
Domain,
that,
yep.
100 million.
Because there's kind of just a specific cost that goes, about, there's
Yeah,
70
of course.
parcels in, there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
cost for each parcel,
I'm
plus.
surprised it'd be that cheap.
Well, I mean, that's starting, sir. I mean, please don't quote me on that.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
I'm surprised.
and that's today's dollars, and in reality, this is 25, 30 years out.
Yeah, so now you can figure a little bit,
Right.
a lot more than that.
So that's kind of that's a summary of the technical analysis we did in terms of our.
Is the center median a requirement in a road like this? It takes up quite a bit of width.
The department doesn't typically, build the double yellow stripe line
Right.
anymore because of safety.
Right.
So I can't say that it's an absolute requirement. We'd still have to widen out at the intersections if you wanted to put a turn lane in, but it's certainly not, standard practice to put to build today 4 lanes with a double yellow stripe line.
Okay. And then naturally is to ward off head-on collisions
Yeah.
or what have you. So there's an exceptions and variations process.
Right.
And not being on the state system, this is our standard and this is what we do. Is there a way to design it? But even if you have the 3-lane, I mean, the footprint is still impact, so I mean, so to answer your question succinctly, 4-lane with a median, could it be modified ultimately? There's probably a process, but per our standard, this is what we would prefer on a 4-lane system.
Does it need to be 22 feet wide? That's a wide median.
Well, again, that's the standard. We could go 16 feet, but again, you got to make sure you have enough, have a turn lane at the signalized intersection.
So for access modification, I mean, we need to have those turn lanes, we have to have the queue. So it'd be, coupled with the lane width. Again, could it be reduced? Obviously, through the design efforts, you might be able to reduce the footprints, but I don't think, if you look at the parcels impacted with a 3 or 4 lane, even with that, I think just empirically, I think you're going to be dealing with, right-of-way impacts. So this is,
I mean, why are are we all really like in a perspective of having 4 lanes? I mean, is that what?
This is what we've asked them to do. They're just producing the
Yeah, I
facts.
know,
of the
yeah,
study.
because we're looking at
just
3
the
lanes,
data.
we're looking at 4 lanes, seeing the traffic.
There is no option that you showed that does not require eminent domain, correct?
Acquisition.
Eminent domain. You can make it,
You can have a willing
you
seller.
can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
You're gonna have to do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have some.
And at my early meetings, I said from the beginning that I have an issue because of eminent domain, and that was the main thing we really discussed.
And ma'am, we brought that up in our meetings, and we heard you loud and clear. Again, not,
Well, I'm not faulting you for, I'm just asking, there is no example out of the four, all of it's eminent domain.
Right, even our three, just bringing it up to a 3-lane cross-section and bringing it up to standards, we still have, it requires some acquisitions.
I just don't feel comfortable with removing people from their businesses that they work for and having them relocate, but much larger than that, I don't like the idea of people losing their homes for something like this, that obviously you've shown me in the first slide isn't so needed as we thought. But I appreciate everything you did. So that's kind of where I'm still at.
We still have a couple more slides to finish up.
So what we've discovered is what a caring community, right? Caring and engaged community this is. And we probably got more feedback from this community than we do on some of the larger projects,
That's
right?
awesome.
So we had a pop-up at Pictona, and I think there was like 167 survey comments and
178, yes, ma'am.
feedback. So that's unheard of.
Yeah, it's generally difficult.
So it's awesome. It makes us feel good to know when we can do that on any project and get that level of feedback and have that amount of understanding of the community. Because our whole intent is to get the pulse of community and the ideal. We also attended one of the neighborhood watch groups, and everyone was very attentive and gave good feedback there, as well as an HOA presentation that we did. What we also found, however, is we had a QR code and more online feedback and survey, and we found that we needed to provide a written opportunity, because again, when you have retirees and seniors, they receive information differently and respond differently. But we found that the public was very supportive, at least of the study and the information, but also understood the challenges, right? So I think, again, we had our meetings here, you gave us great feedback, and we just look forward to being support to this team and this opportunity going forward.
And let me just say, I appreciate all of the public outreach, because I believe that's very important.
Absolutely.
And I know you do too. So I recognize that and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Claire, did you have any more that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. We kept the questions pretty vague. They were, how do you typically commute? And I would like to say that actually most of the 178 was from Holly Hill. We had a few people from Daytona Beach that took the survey, and 25 from Ormond, but the rest was from Holly Hill. So it's your people. Mm-hmm. And you will get a copy of all of their comments. We have all their comments, pages of comments, so maybe that can help you for future projects to see where their concerns are too.
And you will find these comments, if you don't mind me, you'll find these comments stemmed, past the road improvements, and you'll see themes about the canal, you'll see themes about the bike ped accommodations, so I mean, a lot of people, the road's great, but what can you do with the canal? Or there's one young lady who is in a mobility scooter that had to go out into the road to get across the train tracks. So those we had a lot of heartfelt conversations, and a lot of it just really wasn't specific to the road. And at the HOA about what can we do for our community in here. So we engaged a lot, and I think you have a great community. Work with your police officers and your safety officers, and you do have a committed community that just really want to see improvements, and not just on the road, but just in a lot of different things. And you'll pick that up in the public record comments that we'll give you. Okay, so I mean, as we move forward, I mean, we're going to let you look at the roll plots. As we stated in the beginning, and we'll continue to state, these are the facts. These are high-level concepts that we were provided, and probably we could say maybe the most impactful. You could maybe tweak the design here and there, but that would be a further design effort. But for the conclusion of this study, we tried to give you what would be the impactful footprints that you'd see in both the 4-lane and then the 3-lane. We looked at a number of different things that didn't make the paper. I mean, we did a lot of brainstorming, but these were the viable concepts that I think we garnered from the community as well as yourselves. When you look at some of the things that I think can be done, and Nathan's a better engineer and planner than I am, but there could be some intersection improvements. There could be some signal timing. I think some of the congestion could be, attributed to queuing because they don't have that turn, or they're trying to get into a driveway. So these are things, that if you had a restriping effort or a resurfacing, I can't speak to we have a general resurfacing program on a state level system, but with, being off system, I can't speak to when that next resurfacing would be. But in that efforts, looking at intersection improvements, creating some of these turn signal queuing, turn signal timing, these are things that you could explore. Nathan, do you want to continue on?
Yeah. And so if these impacts, these costs are what you consider within the realm of possibilities, if you want to go to the next step, I mean, the next step is we'll call a PD&E study. If the state continues on project development and environment study, that's the NEPA process that we have to go through to make sure the project qualifies for federal funding, and that's a systematic process. It would probably take a year and a half or 2 years to go from these concepts to a more detailed analysis and coming up with a single, here's what we want to implement. And then just one last thing, even we talk about the 3-lane concept, you say, well, shoot, we're just adding a lane. So you're not just adding a lane with the 3, you're completely reconstructing the corridor and bringing it up to current criteria. And as part of that, you have to maintain traffic during construction, which adds cost. So I know that 26 million, 25 million is a big number, but it's not beyond the realm of what we're seeing on other projects like this. So.
And it's transformative. In that reconstruction, there would be many opportunities to do what your community is, or what I think you're looking for, a transformative gateway into Holly Hill. But as your partner, the PD&E process, again, is an 18-month process that is currently not funded, and it have to be with partnership, and that would be, again, with the county, and naturally that partnership moving forward.
One of the things we talked about was, in lieu of a permanent 3rd lane, is our intersection improvements. Now, most of our roads turn to the north, with the exception of Center Avenue, Alta Drive, the entrance into the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center. All the other roads turn to the north for the most part. This is Big Tree Road, and this shows just another example of what a 2-lane road with a turning lane, and this is considered, I guess this would be considered a suicide lane, as we call them, for lack of a better term.
Bidirectional left, but yes, sir.
Former firefighter, traffic engineer. So this shows what small medians would look like, just as an example, where you'd have turning lanes. Now this particular one's got 3 palm trees. You go down a little further one, this one's just got 1 palm tree. This kind of looks a little silly to me, but there are other concepts that we can explore, and putting the turning lanes in will help the flow of traffic, because now somebody waiting to make a left-hand turn is in a turning lane and not holding up traffic behind them. So that's another option that we didn't dive completely into.
And we did a similar project like this on Eden Park Road back in Seminole County when you guys were there, from Maitland Boulevard up. The forecast showed we needed a 3-lane and needed to be upgraded because it was a substandard road, 12-foot lanes. But from Maitland Boulevard up, we did exactly like this because there was concern that in the off-peak hours people would be using that center lane to speed by and So I got another example of something like this. But again, that was a county, the project that was done by the county, not the state.
And when in your construction, C and D, of course, money being ours, that's where we would go. But what intrigued me is the sheet pile walls of the canal, because I truly believe we've all been blasted with flood, and I think that would get much more flow. In your cost, is there a breakdown of what that canal costs as opposed to road construction cost? Just from a 30,000 foot level, so we have some idea?
Yeah, it is. I'm sure we had $1 per square foot of sheet pile walling for the length of the corridor. Okay.
It'd be interesting to see what that is.
But, sir, you also have to look at, there has not been any environmental species or survey or any of the environmental.
Oh, I understand, but we're doing that right now, like countywide.
Yes, sir, I'm just.
Right, when I met with you guys one-on-one, I was like, listen, let's just not look at the road, and I know that was your job, but if we're trying to address transportation as well as flooding, we'd be silly to ignore that canal if we were moving forward with any of these proposals, in my opinion. If you're gonna do it, you might as well spend the money to do it right.
Question. 3-lane road, changing directions in the center lane, is that a consideration?
I don't quite understand you.
The red lights and green lights that make that center lane flow one way in the morning and the other way in the afternoon.
Reversible center lane.
Okay, yes.
That would be an operational and design. The footprint would be the same. So we've looked at the footprint. So the operations and design of that, I can't speak intelligently to that.
Okay.
But the footprint and the right-of-way impacts, we would have the same. So looking at what it would impact financially to create that footprint.
Right.
The operations, again, off the state system, I really can't speak to that.
Okay.
To that flow.
Where they're just all over the place and they work great. Yeah.
But now, aside from the 4 options, is it that the intersections could be improved and some improvements such as that where it wouldn't involve those 4 options? Am I hearing it?
Yeah, we'll call them an interim or near-term improvements that could be made at the intersections. It's not going to take you from a level of service D to a level of service A,
right.
But it could help, if there's a 30-second delay now, it might bring you down to a 15-second, something like that. So there are some spot operational improvements that could be made.
Okay.
I have to jump into another meeting real quick, so I'll let you guys just kind of finish up.
If you finish up, maybe you'll still be here when I'm done. Until the conversation goes.
So when we talk about the traffic count, it's a daily count. Is there any differentiation between morning traffic? Is it going more east or more west? Do we know which direction this traffic is going at that time of day?
Yeah, we did 24-hour, 7-day count, so we can give you the raw data.
And the point of that question
the
is
directionality of it.
Joe and his infinite crazy ideas sometimes comes up with a good one. Was like, what if the whole idea is to get people into our downtown corridor, make it one-way east? What does that do? That all we do is restripe at that point. And I guess we, not being traffic engineers, think 4 lanes is better, right? So, but is there really a need? The 21% increase over the next 25 years, is that really a need to spend $100 million? That's an individual question that we all have to answer, but it appears that the traffic flow is not as big of a problem as we might have thought based on the facts. So then we as a commission need to come up, what is our goal? To get people into our town, out of our town? In a perfect world, 4 lanes would get them in and out, but if the whole goal is to get them in and get them down on US 1 to spend money, then maybe Joe's crazy idea of one-way works. I don't know. I don't know who answers those kind of
I
questions.
just want to get in and out of here better.
Capital costs of doing,
I think everybody that lives there wants to get in and out of here better.
there's a lot of instances, we call those one-way pairs, where you have one road is 2-lane one direction, one road is 2-lane the other direction, and cities have done those conversions. A upfront capital costs are not nearly as great as reconstruction like this. And then there's a whole lot of other operational costs. There's the people that live on the road.
Right.
Now
How do
they
they
can't
get
turn
home?
left out, they gotta go a mile down this way, turn around and go.
Right.
So there's some other organizational, community challenges that then would go along with that.
I think we're definitely gonna have to have one or two workshops on this as a commission. You've answered a lot, given us a lot of data to digest, but I think we're gonna have to come up with some conclusions
Yeah.
amongst ourselves before we move forward. And in a perfect world, if we said go today, and you do that next study, that costs another $500,000, and wait for federal funding, in a perfect world, and we picked any of these options, when would dirt move?
Okay, well, with that being said, sir, PD&E, we've been mandated by the latest Senate bill that they should be done within 18 months. So to get acquisition to do it, you're looking at a 2-year process. And I'm talking state standards.
Right.
How it happens in the county and in the city, I can't speak to that. So with that, design is 18 months to 2 years again. So we're looking at a PD&E 18 months to 2 years. Design 18 months to 2 years. Let's just round it up to 2.
Okay.
Right-of-way acquisition on the state level takes about 2 years. The more right-of-way,
Right. So now we're
the
6.
more time, so now we're at 6. Then construction takes about 2 years. So you're looking at a perfect world, 8 to 10 years, and that's not really getting into the,
It's not getting into the funding cycle. of
it's not
how do
getting
we
into
pay
the
for
funding
this?
cycle, and the canal is the unknown. So, I mean, dredging it, building a wall, and what that looks like. And then, but now we're also getting into the railroad. How long does the railroad take to then work that? And that could be a whole other, we need a year and a half or 2 years. So, perfect world, if everything was perfect and everything was in place, 8 to 10 years is the process from where
In
we stand
reality,
today.
And we
25.
don't live in a
In
perfect
reality,
world.
30 to 50, right?
If you haven't figured that out yet.
And then if you go for grants, the grants open up and then the grants close, So, I mean, that would be, everything aligned, stars aligned. You had the funding today, in the bank today, 8 to 10 years. And then that's the message we say at the planning level, at the state, first state process.
And all these dollars are today's dollars, correct?
We try to put contingency in there, we try to put unknowns, but yes, sir.
Everything goes up.
Mayor, I just want to say, I know we're going to workshop this, but your idea with the canal, I might be able to latch on to that idea.
Well, that's going through this whole
Yeah.
countywide effort when we're doing all this modeling, but that may
It's gotta be improved sooner or later. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
You can't just leave it like it is. It's just not.
You saw it got 2 feet higher yesterday with
Well,
that
it's
little bit of
deteriorating, it's deteriorating everything around it.
Yeah, something has to be done with the canal.
All right, so it's 3 o'clock. We booked these guys for an hour. Does anyone have any more pertinent questions for them?
Mr. Mayor, if I could
Yes, sir.
so the final deliverables, what we'll deliver to the city is the full report, which is bordering on 200+ pages.
With the appendices.
With appendices, and that will also have the public records. So all of the public comments for your perusal will be part of that final big report. Also have an executive summary as such, where it'll be kind of, without the appendices, more of maybe a 10 to 15 page kind of a summary of that report, if you don't have 250-page time frame on your hand. And then we'll give you a 1-page or a front and back with the typicals, just so it's cocktail knowledge, as my boss would say, so you can speak to it if you got caught in a quick meeting. We'll also have the roll plots as such, and so those will be a deliverable to the city as requested. And then from there, we will wait for your further input and further direction. And from there, I think I spoke to a lot of you. I grew up here. We had an accident. I'm part of the traffic data because my wife totaled her car on US 1.
Oh, my God.
So I grew up on between Florence Court, between Walker and 12th Street. So I mean, I know this. So this was a personal project because I've lived here, grown up here, and seen it change just like everybody else.
I remember you talking
What
about
years
that.
did you grow up here? What was the years you?
Well, I graduated in '95. So
You knew all the Delanois and the Fahey's and the Sneeds and the.
The Sneeds, yes, sir. So with that, this is a a project that we'll work in partnership, but as we move forward, the coordination with my management and the community here will have to be kind of further.
And I think having all that data that he spoke about, even the public, might help a little bit in our workshop.
All right, anyone else have anything else? Yes, sir.
I've just been listening real carefully because I've been studying LPGA for probably 40, 50 years or so. And I remember when it didn't even go any further than I-95, you know what I mean? But
It was a dirt road.
you say that the cheapest thing that we can do is $20.8 million or so, right? But that doesn't include any real estate acquisition, right?
Yeah.
That would be if you wanted to widen it, sir.
Right. If they want to widen it to the 20, but the 20.8 million is like a deception because we got to buy property.
It's half price.
Like, it's about half the price, right?
And yes, sir, I
Okay,
want to
what-
be transparent to that, but at this point in time, I can't speculate, or
Yeah.
would we
Yeah,
speculate on property costs?
I just got a couple other things. One thing I brought up a couple of times, and people always told me to be called meeting, all that's a career decision. I mean, it's a political decision, not to say anything about it, but I've always thought that was a good idea for LPGA to go all the way from I-95 across the river, across the bridge. And also, what is the possibility of convincing the federal government that we need LPGA for a disastrous evacuation route? That's how we accepted the money at the TPO to get an exit of Pioneer Trail. The federal government gave us the money to do it only because they wanted us, as far as I can tell, they wanted an evacuation route from the east side, clear it and come out and be able to come out there. Plus, it's taken a lot of traffic off of Dunlop as well, we know. But what is the possibility of convincing or presenting to the federal government that we need LPGA as an evacuation route for a big disaster or something? I mean, how else would you get over? I mean, suppose something happened, you couldn't go north on US 1, you got to go all the way down to Port Orange and go across Dunlop to get to I-95 to get out. How else would you get how would you get out to the interstate? I mean, you could present it to them. I mean, is there a possibility of it?
I mean, there are possibilities. This was presented over in Brevard with 520, and you look at the causeway. Right now, the federal government is in flux, and it would be hard to speak to their appetite at this point, and I can't speak to that. That's not my, we look at roadways and design, so we can certainly, if that is a request, I can try to find somebody in my department that could help you with that endeavor.
You have a talk with Randy Fine, he's pretty reasonable about things.
But I can't speak to that, sir, but again, the federal government, the grant
But is it
process.
something possible we could look at, say, an evacuation route?
The only thing I can think, Roy, is that if we've got 13,000 people that live in our city, there's probably less than 4,000 people that live east of, we're going all the way to Nova, so I was thinking east of US 1. Yeah, so maybe you have a valid point.
What if we convinced them to put a bridge across the river and make an evacuation?
Oh, they tried that 30 years ago, remember?
Yeah,
That was tried years
I think the
ago.
tunnel was more favorable than the bridge at that time.
There's no road on the other side to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you have a valid point.
Yeah, that's John Anderson that way.
I mean, it's gonna be 35, 40 years before we do anything anyway, it looks like, because we've been trying and trying and trying, we finally got, at least got a study on it. Yeah, and we really appreciate it.
It's just, can't even widen it.
And we do another study to come up with other plans, it's gonna cost a lot of money and time to do that as well, you said, like another 2 years.
Well, with this, sir, it all depends on what we need to study. If it's a single intersection, it's a shorter time frame than the corridor study.
And I travel it a lot. I'll tell you that left turn lane at US 1 and Nova Road both is a lifesaver. If we didn't have that, we'd have a real problem. I mean, I've seen traffic going east a lot of times in the morning. It's backed up all the way to Center Street.
Yep. Or at least halfway, most of the morning.
And like you were saying, that might be a traffic signal
4 or 5 lights before you get through it sometimes. At least 4.
adjustment.
Yeah.
Or whatever you call it.
And those are called operational improvements, so they don't have to go through the full NEPA evaluation process. It's a much faster, straightforward process.
Like you
not
say,
added
that
internally.
when people are riding or walking at the railroad track, there by that junkyard or somewhere near that, they have to come out on the road to get around the railroad crossing. I've seen people coming down the road and somebody ride a bicycle right out.
I mean,
there's a reason for that.
It's a safety
That's
issue
a
as well.
railroad thing.
Yeah, it's a railroad.
We fought that for a while.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Very, very well done.
Fantastic.
We'll be adjourned.